All right, well, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said about, what's this called again? Scroll up. Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Stick around and find out. Bum 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 bum. Now. I don't know, what would be like the cross between, like, what would be Danny Elfman's version of the 1990s X-Men animated cartoon? That's what I was going for there. Because this is kind of like Tim Burton's X-Men. I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Play Productions. This is my uncut review of Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. The synopsis on IMDb provided by 20th Century Fox says, when Jacob discovers clues to a mystery, that spans different worlds and times, he finds a magical place known as Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. But the mystery and danger deepen as he gets to know the residents and learns about their special powers and their powerful enemies. Ultimately, Jacob discovers that only his own special peculiarity can save his new friends. So as I understand it, this is based on a young adult book series that I am not at all familiar with. I knew that Tim Burton was directing this movie. I saw the trailers. I was like, oh, cool, looks like a neat Tim Burton movie. And so I was like, oh, I definitely want to check it out. It's got like a fairy tale type of pacing and a vibe to it. There's kind of a series of unusual things that are being discovered by the main character as he enters into this kind of fantastical world, and all of these discoveries reveal mysteries that lead to more suspense, and it builds over time, and then there's a big suspenseful climax, so it has a little bit of a fairy tale vibe to it, I guess, in that sense. There is time travel involved, which always requires rules to be established, I think, in order for it to work well, because time travel in and of itself, I mean, if you try to handle the way it's usually handled is illogical and inconsistent, and so you have to, like, there are different rules that different time travel stories will have. Like, some of them will say, okay, well, you can't change time. Well, some of them will say, yes, you can change time. Or some of them will say, you can change time, but it's going to lead to a parallel dimension or something like that. And then you've got movies like that really explore the butterfly effect. Whenever somebody goes back in time and changes the slightest thing, then a whole bunch of stuff changes. And other times you can have characters that go back in time and they will maybe, change a few things, but then a lot of other things still seem to kind of naturally fall into place predictably the way they did before, So you always have to, I think, if it's not a comedy, like Groundhog Day or something like that, something that's a little lighter in feel, I think it really benefits me as a viewer if you make your time travel rules really clear to me. And that way I can understand the stakes. I can understand what is likely to happen and what's not likely to happen, and what the opposition is that the heroes are up against as they're dealing with time travel as this element that they have to, jump, hurdles through to get where they want to get in the story, so the problem with this story is that for me, I didn't feel like the time travel rules were really clear. So I had trouble investing in the stakes during the climax or in the story, a lot of it leading up to that. The behavior of the characters is also driven more by style rather than realistic human motives in many cases. The same is true for physics sometimes. I'll give you a couple examples. One, there are two twins fighting over a teddy bear, and Miss Peregrine comes up. This is in the trailer, so it's not a big spoiler. Miss Peregrine comes up, and her solution to it is to tear the bear in half and give it to each one. Well, she doesn't have any powers of super strength. Her powers have nothing to do with super strength at all. She grabs this bear and just really easily rips it in half, and then gives a half to each child. And not only that, I mean, if you ever grab a stuffed animal and try to just rip it in half, I mean, good luck. Not only that, but the bear almost perfectly divides down the middle when she tears it, And so it had this kind of lighthearted, kind of comical moment where things just kind of worked out conveniently for the little gag that they were presenting there. Another example would be those same twins when they're kind of escaping from a bad situation. Everybody's kind of exiting a window and sliding down this part of the roof, and the twins, of course, they get out, and like synchronized swimmers, they slide down, and it's really it's kind of cute and funny, and there's lots of little things like that that are not really either physically or psychologically in terms of just a human behavior. It's just got a lighter tone in that sense, but I don't want to lean on that phrase lighter tone too much, because a lot of the the story and the visuals, the aesthetic, are very dark in terms of their content. So it's like a Tim Burton fairy tale. It's more so than like the Alice in Wonderland. At least the first one. I didn't see the second one, which I think he just produced. But even darker than that. It's kind of hard to describe what the tone is. It feels like it might be overall. This movie would be a really good fit for preteens and junior high. It feels young adult to me in the sense of early Harry Potter movies, rather than say Twilight or Divergent or Maze Runner. There is some romance in the story, but it's handled in a very sweet way. It's a nervous exploration between two teenagers, which for me is much more enjoyable and realistic, I have to add, than in like a lot of young adult movies like Twilight or Divergent, or whatever, or CW TV shows that have these young adults, these mid to late teens or sometimes early 20 somethings, talking boldly and knowingly about love to each other, when it's clear that their view of love is extremely immature, extremely superficial, and it's just empty. Maybe that is realistic, sadly to say, maybe that is realistic, that just a lot of people at that age, they're not really thinking through as they're engaging in relationships and talking about love, what love truly is, So it was nice for me, whether that is a realistic, the CW take on love is realistic or not, it was nice for me to have a young romance treated in this way. It was much more sweet to me rather than eye-rolling, So let's talk about the cast a little bit. Well, I'm not going to get out my slide and show you any pictures of them, but the cast is all solid, I thought, and the peculiars/mutants, especially Miss Peregrine, sometimes move and act. They just use their bodies in a way that's slightly theatrical, and it adds to that kind of fairy tale vibe, and it also kind of kept me at a distance a little bit. It just kind of reminded me, this is a stylistic thing that's happening here with the choice of body movements, Miss Peregrine did have this one emotional exchange with her children just before the climax that really moved me, and I thought, oh man, I would have liked them to touch on that vibe in her performance a little bit more often. I wish that she would have been allowed to go to a slightly more grounded place just a little more often. As far as stunts and visuals go, I think Tim Burton fans will be pleased. I'm a Tim Burton fan, and I love the visual designs and the creatures and the costumes of the characters. Miss Peregrine has this great looking hair that has this strange little wisp here, and it looks like a drawing, as opposed to what would actually physically happen with somebody's hair, I was okay with that, especially given the overall tone, and if you forgive the tone or don't expect realism from it, and you like Tim Burton's visual style, there's a lot of neat things to just kind of take in this movie. The CG is not groundbreaking at all to my eye. It looks like CG, but the design really made up for it for me. There's almost zero gore effects or gore makeup, despite some events that should clearly be producing more blood in this story. And there are multiple characters who lose their eyes in this story. That's kind of a thing that's happening, and they neglect to allow the eyelids to collapse as they naturally would, which they could do with visual effects these days if they wanted to, because if there's not an eyeball present in there, then the lids are going to kind of collapse. If you've ever seen somebody that actually doesn't have an eye, then the eyelid collapses. But again, I think that was a choice they possibly, a point of neglect they kept in there, maybe purposefully, in service to keeping it from going too dark and kind of staying in that young adult territory. As far as relevance, was there anything of philosophical, moral, spiritual relevance that might stimulate worthwhile thought or conversation during or after seeing this movie? And really no theme stood out for me. Of course, there's the idea of feeling odd and ordinary and undervalued in our normal day-to-day life, and then discovering, this is the fantasy that we all long for, is to discover that there's something unique and special about us that makes us valuable to others. And there's wonderful things that Scripture tells us about our worth, about our significance, despite kind of like the value system of the world, you know. So you could pull something from there, but the thing is that idea is part of so many young adult and superhero stories that I'm just kind of numb to it at this point, and I don't see it. While it is there and potentially there to springboard off of, I think most people won't even think about it because it's just present in so many movies that are and stories that are being told today. So there is an idea briefly presented about kind of neglectful parenting, but there's no strong statements I didn't think that were being made there. So anyway, if I were to travel back in time and talk to myself, since I have no idea what your tastes are, I'd go back in time and I'd say, don't freak out about the time travel thing. Regarding Miss Peregrine, skip this one. Wait until your oldest son reaches like that preteen sweet spot when he's just kind of first noticing girls in that way, and you know, he'll be too young to be bored and just old enough to handle the mildly gruesome and macabre aspects of the movie. In fact, at the right brief window in time, he'll probably love this movie. I think at the right brief window of time, I would have loved this movie. But it's just not your kind of movie right now, Pater. It's rated PG-13 for intense sequences of fantasy action / violence and peril. Those are my thoughts. I'd love to get yours in the comments below. Visit spiritblade.com and check out what else we have for you there. That's a fun and free way to support this channel. And then please like, share, and subscribe if you like this video and want to share it with others and want more videos like it. Then that's a good thing to do. And then boom, please visit christiangeekcentral.com for a ton more content and community. I hope you'll join us there soon. Maybe even join our Extra Life team for the fundraising event that's coming up. Yeah. christiangeekcentral.com. Seek the truth. Where's the button? Dang it, I'm not ready at all, am I?